Alright, well, today's video, I'm not really going to focus on any one thing. Just kind of show you guys a little bit of a couple different cars I'm working on. You can see this 2013 Matt Kenseth 500th start, just to show you kind of where I'm at with this one. I've done some painting here along the side here, along this front, and over here as well, and I place these pieces on the side and this hood decal on to make sure that it's centered in between this stripe here and this stripe here. A couple things to note: it's not perfectly centered, unfortunately. Using the hood pins as a reference, if you can see this hood pin here and the distance between this hood pin and this white stripe, and then this hood pin and this white stripe. I tried to bring this over as much as possible, but it's not as far as this one is. It's close. I think it's as close as I could get it without having too much space over here. But again, as you're working these things, you're going to run into that. It's not going to be perfectly symmetrical. You do your best. You try to do your best, and then you live with what you've got. So what I've got now is I've got these last pieces. These are the headlight pieces. I almost always save the headlight pieces for the very end. They're usually the last decals that I apply to a car. And again, I don't know how well you can see on the video, but there's the decal, and then there's the painted surface, and it's kind of hard to see, but what I'm trying to do with the headlight decal, well, what I did was the headlight decal, I'm trying to get this pretty close here, the headlight decal here had like a little black off the back, and I trimmed that off, and I did the same thing over here. So it's just primarily the headlight decal and the white stripe going down to the white stripe. I kept all that over there, and the reason I did that is because when I lined it up here on the car, the headlight decal kind of wraps around this way on the lower side, and I want it to go up, and that's just hard to do. So I'll take off that black piece, I'll apply this headlight decal, and then I'll use this black piece here as kind of a cover into a little space that's up here as opposed to down here. So, again, just trying to do the best that I can with what I've got. And yeah, so, and then I did want to talk a little bit about this Dish Network car. So if you remember in my other video, I had showed this, and when I had painted the cowl, I got a little black paint down here on this side here, and I mentioned, maybe I'll take the red and I'll paint over top of it. Well, what I've come to learn, every once in a while this works, and sometimes it doesn't work, but it usually works, is if I paint the car with the Rust-Oleum or Tester's paint, and then I come back with the paint pen and I go over stuff. If I'm careful, I can usually use the Tester's paint thinner and ever so carefully wipe off what I had applied as the paint pen on the paint pen, because this seems to be pretty well cured, whereas the paint pen doesn't cure as well, or doesn't adhere as well on top of the painted surface. So you can remove that a little bit easy. So I'll just show you what I did. I didn't film it when I did it. But what I did was I cut a couple little super small pieces of, and I'll just show you what I did. I just cut a real small piece of paper towel, and I kind of folded it to a small little ball. And then I got this here like that. I dipped it ever so slightly because this, the paper towel absorbs it really quick. I dipped it, and then I just ever so slightly rubbed it off, and just, I barely rubbed, really. I just kind of touched it, and let it sit for like a couple seconds, and then you could see as I would do this, the black was being removed from the red. And when I was done, I got another piece of paper towel, and I dried it off, and the red was the shiny finish was removed from the red, but the black was all gone, as you can see. And then all I did was I took some of the clear sealer, went over top of it, and that's where I'm at right now. It's not 100% perfect because I still see just a little bit of the black that I couldn't get off, but it's virtually unnoticeable. And again, when the customer gets this car and they look it over, they would be very hard pressed to see that little tiny smudge on there. You can see that. Yeah, and that's kind of how you clean up some of your paint work that sometimes gets over, onto areas you don't want it to get onto. But that paint thinner is very potent, so you really have to be careful with that. All right, so let me come back to this one here, and we'll put these on. So, unfortunately, I got a little bit of a decision to make here. So, you can see my headlight. The headlight typically is kind of here, and then it kind of angles up. That's typically how you want it. But when I do that, this kind of goes down further than I want. So what I'm going to have to do is kind of find a happy medium in there, and just kind of take the best I'll say the best of both worlds, or that's not unfortunately going to be a perfectly, as the line kind of comes down, it's going to do that. Again, wash my hands. I like to use my thumb. I mean, I'm just amazed at how awesome our fingers and our skin is. Very helpful for this hobby, and God designed our bodies just incredibly so we can do cool stuff. So yeah, so that's pretty good. I would say that's probably the best compromise. And then I can see the paint there, and I'm going to take this little black triangle here that I trimmed, and I'm going to put it right over top of that painted area. I don't mind piecing decals on, but you really, I mean, obviously you'd rather have it all in one piece and do it that way. But if you have to trim pieces to wrap around or to fill in spots, you know, definitely do that. Don't be afraid to do that, especially on these curved surfaces. Okay, sometimes that happens. When you, I guess my thumb was a little stickier than the way it was on there, so I'm going to get a little bit of water. Put this back in place. I've had that where the decal kind of doesn't adhere very well, but it's in place, but it's not really sticking. And then when I go to put the sealer on it, it'll move. And at that point, what I do is I just position it back into place, let the sealer dry over it, add another coat very carefully over top. Usually after 2 or 3 coats, the decal's not going anywhere. It's sealed in, so you don't necessarily have to go back to water and re-wet it with water to get it back into place. So that looks pretty good. Now let me see. This is, I don't say the hard part, but this is where you try to get it symmetrical as best as you can between the 2 headlights. Oops. I was already off a little bit with the body, but let's see if I can do this. Obviously I don't want to cover the 20 in any way, so that's got to be kept free of any coverage. Yeah, this is going to be less than perfect. I can see it already, because that would be way over there. Alright, so let's do this. Let's put it in place and see what it looks like. Yeah. So unfortunately it's not going to line up. I have an idea. Alright, how can I do this? Let me think about this for a second. Yeah, I'm afraid if I try to trim it, I'm going to make it worse than it actually is. So I think I'm just going to leave it. It doesn't connect. It doesn't connect perfectly here. So here's where we're at, right? I've got this coming down. You see the Camry as a reference point, and this coming down. This and this. I can't really go too much more off of that. My red line comes down. My red and white line comes down here, but it doesn't intersect with this like it does over here. It's just off a little bit, just a little tiny bit. I think that's probably my best compromise there. And yeah, I don't cover the 20. Yeah, got a little bit of the exposed black that I pre-painted, but that's, again, it's not the end of the world. So I think that's where I'm going to end up. It just goes to, again, it just speaks to the fact that I'm trying for perfection. And as you guys can see, I'm trying my hardest to get it as close to perfect as I can. But sometimes you just have to surrender and say, you know what, it's not going to be perfect, and it's going to be as close as I can get it, and that's that. So So all in all, I'm pretty happy with the car. I'm not ecstatic with it because everything else, everything else besides the front is pretty good. I did want to show you what I did on the back here. And this, if you remember, I was trying to put in a piece here to connect these two because there was a gap, and I got that piece cut in there. Again, it's not a perfect match, but it covers that. It covers that pretty well. And that's basically it. I'm going to let that dry. I don't have any the front bottom of splitter area is black. I've already painted that black, covered that. There was a little bit of the silver showing underneath here and underneath here on these rear quarter panels at the very bottom. So I did a little black touch up there. The roof lines are black. I'll probably put another coat or two of sealer, and then I'll go over with the Sharpie, and then another coat or two of the sealer, and I'll be done. And that's that. So pretty good. Again, not 100% perfect, but pretty good. And then the other car I'm working on is this 2015 Larson Mellow Yellow. I had to do a little touch up on the bottom because when I handle the car, so much with decaling it and sealing it, my fingers inevitably rub, usually right here on the exhaust. And even after 2 coats of clear sealer, it will still rub off if I'm touching it too much. And so what I like to do when I'm in the final stages of sealing, I'll just usually get my black paint pen, touch it up if it's worn a little bit, smudged a little bit, and then I'll let it dry, and then I'll put another coat or two or sealer over top of that. And that's kind of where I'm at with this one. So and I think this is like coat 4 of the clear sealer. I do go over the plastic, the clear plastic windows. I used to not do that, but then I was reading some places, and it's usually, I'm not on there very much anymore, but I usually go to like Diecast Crazy. There's a Randy Ayers forum. Randy Ayers forum. Those guys typically do some really good work on the 1/24 scale. Anyways, I was reading, and this guy, what he would do was he would take the clear plastic and he would dip it right into the Pledge floor care finish, and just he would dip it and let it sit, and it just gave it a nice gloss, finish on the on that clear plastic. And so I thought that was pretty cool. So at that point I said, you know what, let me at least start seeing what I can do and put a coat of sealer on it. And I've been doing it ever since. I said this before, but you got to be careful to get too much of this clear sealer. I've especially on a black, the black, it really shows if you get too much. It'll cloud up on you. I was working on a black car recently. I'm trying to remember which one it was. And it did cloud up a little bit when it dried. It was kind of a dry Just a little bit of a cloudy surface on the hood. That's usually where it's most noticeable. And the way I took care of it, well, there's a couple things, right? You've got to make sure your brush is clean. Your brush has to be clean. Clean this brush out. I use this water. Let me pick up the camera here. I use this water, and I change out the water every few days. I just use tap water. I don't do anything silly with any kind of distilled water or whatever. Just clean it out, and my glass bowl, it'll get a film in it. So you don't, when you clean out, change your water, wash your glass bowl with soap and water. Because again, you just got to clean everything. Soap and water, clean it really good, and make sure that your brush is clean when you apply the sealer. The other thing that I did was I cleaned everything, got my clean brush, I got some sealer, and basically I got some sealer on the brush, and basically what I did was I just kind of I rubbed it. I rubbed it a little. I pressed pretty not real hard, but I pressed hard enough to kind of lift that cloudiness. And I just kind of like did this with the clear sealer, and then I made sure there was no extra, and I cleaned it off, and lo and behold, it dried clean. It dried nice, clear, glossy finish. So you can clean up some of that cloudiness that happens, but it comes with clean water, clean bowl, clean brush. Again, this brush I only use with water and the sealer and the microsole. I guess when I'm doing decals, I use this. Any other painting, I'd never use this brush for any painting. Any alcohol or spirits, I use a different brush. I use this one, or this one. Use that one. But this brush is only dedicated for the sealer, the water, decals, that kind of stuff. So it doesn't get contaminated or cross-contamination between, your alcohol, based paints and thinners. So, yeah. That's basically all I wanted to show today. It's not really all that I'm not doing a whole lot today. I am going to get some JB Weld and put that car together and let it sit overnight and then start decaling it tomorrow. But hope you guys are doing well, and we'll talk to you in the next video. God bless.